On this shocking episode of Mythbusters, there's the most explosively epic high speeds in Mythbusters history.
Wow!
As Adam and Jamie dig the dirt on a myth from World War I.
When we say we're going to be digging holes, actually, this thing's going to be digging holes.
Can the shape of a battlefield trench
What did you do today? I spray painted some dirt.
really stop a shockwave and save a soldier's life?
No. This is for real. 3, 2, 1, bye-bye!
I think there's going to be a crater there.
Meanwhile, Cary, Grant, and Tori are clowning around
I just feel silly. I don't know why.
in a comedy car crash. Can a barrage of balloons
Tori, it's fun time.
really aspire to be an alternative airbag? Or will this myth go pop?
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Who are the Mythbusters? Adam Savage
Right, Jamie, I'm ready for testing.
and Jamie Hyneman.
What could go wrong?
Between them, more than 30 years of special effects experience. Together with Cary Byron,
That is a headache.
Grant Imahara,
Somebody ordered an explosion?
and Tori Belleci.
Let's top this car up!
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
Aren't you gonna ask me about my costume?
Nope.
I'm gonna tell you the story anyway. It comes from the fan site, and obviously it's from World War I.
Are you going to make some kind of joke about me being a boy in World War I?
No, I promise I won't. The myth is that in World War I, Germans were very precise about the digging of their trenches.
Towards what end?
They thought that when a mortar landed in the trench, the 90-degree corners would prevent the blast pressure wave from traveling too far in the trench. They really were specific about it being sharp corners. They didn't want rounded corners that were worn away by people walking through. Sharp, sharp corners. That's the story.
All right. Earth-moving equipment and explosives.
Sounds like a perfect day.
World War I's trench warfare was wretched. But could a carefully constructed corner really have an impact on soldier survival? It's a myth that shakes down to shockwaves. A clumsy corner will supposedly let a shockwave sail right past, while a perfect pitch will stop it dead. But will this myth hit the wall?
What's the plan?
I'm thinking absolutely this is a story that we want to start in small scale. I'm thinking specifically using water ripples as our waves and watching them move through environments that match the shape of the trenches that we're thinking about.
That makes sense. And I tell you what, why don't we make it like one of those wave machines, you know, the desktop toy that has oil over tinted water?
Fantastic. That will slow down the reaction and hopefully we can see what's going on.
Exactly.
So, supersonic shockwaves will let rip later, as the guys first dive into this myth with water.
This whole story is about how different shaped trenches affect the propagation of blast pressures through those trenches. And we want to investigate some of these shapes here in the shop before going full scale. We've decided to build our trenches out of clear acrylic, and we're going to fill them full of oil and water to watch the wave propagation. Isn't that cool? We're going to build one long, straight one. It's not pretty, but it'll do. We're going to build one that's kind of like a step.
Freaking sexy, man.
And then we're going to build one loosey-goosey one to see what effect the round edges have that's different than the sharp edges. That's how you're meant to be. Yes. It's all falling into place.
With the three tiny trenches bonded together, the filling can commence. First with water, and then with baby oil.
This is all the baby oil San Francisco had today. Somewhere in the world, there's a lot of rough babies.
The tricky trio of oil, water, and food dye
That looks cool, doesn't it?
should ensure that any wave propagation pattern is crystal clear.
I like it when my waves smell like babies.
But what's also clear is that an explosion in air, it ain't.
Now, before you get all up in arms of the fact that this myth is about blast pressure waves and we're doing a bunch of scale experiments with Plex boxes and oil and water, please remember that an ocean wave, a sound wave, and a blast pressure wave are all effectively mechanically the same thing. They are a moving wave. And since this whole story is about the idea that the shape of a trench can affect a wave, we consider these scale tests to be totally valid and analogous to what we expect to see when we go full scale.
The final ingredient for this accurate analogy is to create a consistent crest.
Now I've got to figure out a way to do this mechanically, but I think I've got an idea.
But that turns out to be tricky, as Adam's first effort is jettisoned by Jamie.
What about the wave size? I somehow visualize them being a lot smaller.
I'm pretty happy with what I've got here. But Mr. Hyneman has some different ideas, so he is also going to play around with this tank, and he may come to a different conclusion.
Jamie's mean machine, a foot plate attached to a reciprocating saw, does create a ton of trench turbulence.
If you make it just kiss the surface, it creates a smaller wave.
But, like Adam's, it's not creating waves with perfect precision.
I don't think there's a high and a low on this.
So Adam hits the workshop once more, and this time gets hammered. And before he can say, surf's up, he's got waves as smooth as silk, meaning the experiment can begin.
So this is our impulse wave. It is our stand-in for a shock wave. The motor is giving an exactly perfect pulse and delivering a wave that carries all the way to the end of our tank with a measurable amplitude, that is, a height. Now what we're going to do is put this rig at the same exact orientation in each of our tank trenches and see what effect their shape has on the amplitude of the wave at the end.
So are we ready to mark it down?
Yeah, let's get our control done. Lights! Isn't that cool? Here we go.
On cue, the machine ripples into action before Adam marks the wave's high and low points
That's it.
at the far end of the straight trench.
Our control was successful. Our wave impulse machine gave us a wave height from top to bottom at the end of the tank of 3/4 of an inch. Now we want to find out if we get the same results when we run this same test through a right angle bend.
And while Adam gets on with the trench transfer,
Oh, shoot.
Jamie's got an important announcement for those playing along at home.
Just in case you're wondering, while these tanks look different, they're actually the same length if you look right down their center lines. Now that should mean that the wave would have to travel the same distance.
And with exactly the same fill level too,
It's perfect.
the Mythbusters are making sure the only difference between tests is the trench shape.
Oil and water, wave test in a right angle tank. 3, 2, 1. Huh. Looks like a pretty clear result just right off the top of my head.
It's a lot larger on this end than it is on this one.
Yeah, that is cool.
Our right angle tank seems to be quite effective at reducing wave amplitude. After the first corner, it was reduced by 2/3, and after the second corner, it was reduced by 3/4. That's significant.
Yep, by the time the wave reaches the end of this tank, its size has been severely slashed, meaning that the sharp corners did shield their Shockwave stand-in.
Soft corners, here we come.
So how will their curved corner compare?
It looks a little bigger down here.
It does look a little bigger down there. We might have something.
And on closer inspection, they do. This test's wave height is 1/4 of an inch, lower than the control, but higher than the sharp turn tank. So what does that mean for the myth?
So the myth is that in World War I, Germans built their trenches on precise 90-degree angles on the assumption that it would limit the strength of shock waves traveling through the trenches. Our scale testing here in the shop with our small-scale trenches in all the shapes that we've tried seems to suggest that they might have been right.
This is one of my favorite scale experiments we've ever done. What do you think?
Well, this story is about blast pressure. We need explosives.
Absolutely. That is definitely the next step. Digging some trenches and blowing some stuff up.
Yep.
I'm gonna get a costume on.
Okay.
Next up, it's time to call in the clowns.
All right, I've got a crazy myth for you. It involves clowns and car crashes. Two clowns are driving to a party. The clown on the passenger side has a big bunch of balloons.
And what happens? They go out of control and crash the car?
Exactly. Now, the driver clown is wearing a seatbelt, so when they careen into a wall, he's fine. But the passenger is not.
What, and the balloons save him?
Exactly.
It's a myth that makes for one heck of a headline. But can a bunch of party balloons really act as an improvised airbag? Or will this road speed wipeout go pop?
All right, this is what we should do. We should crash two cars. We'll have them traveling at road speeds of around 35 miles an hour. And with the first car, we'll see what happens to an unseatbelted passenger.
Great, and for the second one, we can put an average bunch of balloons in the passenger seat and see what that does to the G-loads.
Okay, let's start clowning around.
So we are testing the myth that a bunch of balloons will save a clown's life in a car crash. Now we are going to be crashing a bunch of vehicles. But before we stick a clown and balloons in there, we need to transform that into a clown car. Let's go to work.
According to police reports, the clowns were driving a run-of-the-mill runaround like this,
I just feel silly. I don't know why.
albeit one that had been pimped for a party.
Yeah, it's a blue circle.
And after Tori finishes his stripes and stars, this car's ready to take the plunge.
So the clown car is done. Now it's time for the fun part. We're gonna take it up with a crane and drop it straight on its nose as if it's crashing into a wall at 35 miles an hour and find out what kind of forces we're gonna get.
The vertical drop is a curious way to crash cars. But with no chance of a rogue runaway or a flattened fence, it's the most reliable rig for a party balloon pileup. Which is why at Treasure Island,
That's perfect.
that's how this myth is going down.
All right, bring in the clown.
So first up, we are gonna do a control test with the driver belted in and the passenger not belted in and see what kind of G-loads we get. Now remember, there won't be any balloons in that test. In the second test, we're gonna do the exact same thing. This time, put a bunch of balloons in front of the passenger and see what difference that makes.
And to do just that, the guys first need a couple of clowns.
Oh, yes. Must stretch it out. It's okay. It'll feel good tomorrow.
Who, one stressed to kill,
Making him smile.
are put into their respective hot seats where, just like the myth, the driver is buckled up, but his passenger is not.
What kind of clown wouldn't wear a seatbelt?
The final piece of the puzzle is to add the data sensors, and that means it's time to get scientific.
What I have here is an accelerometer. Now we'll have two of them. One will be attached to the clown's head and to the chest. Now when the crash happens, voltage will be sent to the data logger, and that way we'll be able to record the event. Then we'll look at the data later and find out how many G's the clown endured.
A survivable G-load is anything under 100 Gs. That's our benchmark. Now to measure that, we have our PCB accelerometers and the help of our friend David from National Instruments.
And with that, everything's set for liftoff.
Send in the clowns. We've got all of our sensors in place. Now it's time to raise the car.
Here we go. We got a big one.
Now we've calculated that if we raise the car 41 feet from the bumper to the ground, we can achieve a 35-mile-per-hour crash.
All right, this is clown car control test. In 3, 2, 1.
In Trench Torpedo, Adam and Jamie's small-scale test
It looks a little bigger down here.
has shown that a sharp corner can stop a watery wave.
This is really, really cool.
But how about an explosive one?
Well, that seemed to work pretty well. Maybe there is something to the technique.
Yep, I think it's time to build some real trenches and use some real explosives.
Let's get digging.
Okay.
So to dig the dirt on this myth full scale, the guys march to a memorable location.
We're in Ione, California today, and I'm standing on the exact spot where we actually tested the drain disaster myth of all things. Today, however, we're going to go back in time and dig a bunch of World War I trenches and subject them to some enemy fire. It's going to bring back a lot of memories for Jamie.
Like in their shop tests, the guys are going to throw together 3 trenches.
Trench number 1.
The straightaway, the rigid right angle, and the shoddy serpentine.
That looks cool.
And once they're all marked up, the digging can go down. Where, thanks to some heavy machinery and a time-lapse montage, their 3 50-footers get sunk fast. But that doesn't mean it's job done.
Not many people know this, but Jamie's family are color farmers. They've been farming color like this on specially treated pieces of plywood out in the fields for years. This is totally not true, not even a little bit. In fact, we are color coding our trenches so that both from a sequence and narrative standpoint, you can clearly see which trench we're doing at a given time, but also experimentally it'll help you separate them in your mind.
The color coding does help tailor-make each tunnel.
Coming along nicely.
But the boards are also there to shore up the sides.
Why are we shoring up the sides? Well, really specifically, it's so that we get perfectly straight edges and precise corners for our blast wave to move through. That's how we're going to assess the soul of this story.
Of course, there's one part of one trench where strictly straight sides are not the order of the day.
This one, the imprecise corner trench, we are leaving uncovered with the wood on the curvy parts to get the biggest difference that we possibly can. Also, for visual symmetry, we're gonna paint it blue to match the walls. Here we go. Wow! Woohoo! Yeah! Dude, I'm loving this! What did you do today? I spray painted some dirt. How did that look? Better than you'd think.
Adam's tickled pink by the blue. But what's more important is that with that, it's time to bring on the boom.
Our trenches are dug, they're shored up, heck, they're even color-coded. Now it's time for the explosives. Our benchmark control test will be this trench, the 50-foot long straight. It should give us a fantastic idea of what happens to a blast wave as it travels through exactly this configuration.
And when we've got that data, we're going to do the same test in this one, which is the classic German sharp-edged right-angled trench, and we'll compare the two.
And finally, we'll be sending an explosive blast wave through our soft-cornered serpentine trench. And if there's anything to this story whatsoever, what we expect to see is a higher blast pressure where I'm standing than in the corresponding spot in our hard-cornered trench. All right, lads, bring on the explosions!
It's enough to make a clown frown. But can party balloons really save your life in a 35-mile-an-hour fender bender? To find out, the Mythbusters control car is about to crash land.
All right, you ready to drop the clown car?
In 3, 2, 1.
I don't think those clowns survived.
To the naked eye, the 35-mile-an-hour head-on looks horrific. But survival is all about the G-load, where anything over 100 means there's been a clown catastrophe.
Now, the driver with seatbelt experienced 150 Gs. That's well over our benchmark for fatality. But even more interesting, the passenger that didn't have a seatbelt on or an airbag experienced 630 on the chest and 340 on the head. That is devastating. It's going to be really interesting to see if the balloons will have any impact on the numbers.
So cue Clown Car 2.
Another day, another clown car.
Like the control test, the driver clown is buckled up, while the passenger isn't.
Think this wig absorbed any of the energy?
Also, like the control test, both clowns are shrouded with sensors.
All right, let's drop these clowns.
But unlike the control test,
Tori, it's fun time.
Drop 2 will have the mythical balloon barrier.
All right, now it's time to put the balloons in the car. Now, the theory here is these balloons are going to act as an airbag. Now, the goal of any airbag is to slow the passenger's forward motion as evenly as possible in just a fraction of a second. I'm not sure these balloons are going to function that way, but it's sure going to be fun to find out.
Well, now I know why these clowns crash. I mean, you can't even see past all these balloons.
Okay, they're clowns. They didn't think ahead.
Oh, I got you something.
Aww. I love it.
All right, this is clown car drop with balloons. Are you ready?
Okay, in 3, 2, 1. -1. Oh.
Now that is what I call a party. I don't think they survived it, though.
Once again, the crash was a smash as the passenger pushed past the balloon barrier and wiped out on the windshield.
All right, Dave, the big question on everyone's minds, did the balloon save the clown's life?
So in the first drop with no balloons, the passenger saw 340 Gs at the head, 630 Gs at the chest. In the drop with the balloons, the passenger saw 350 Gs to the head and 620 at the chest.
So the results are pretty much the same. The balloons didn't do anything for him.
Almost no difference at all.
Thanks for your help.
Come on, I'll show you my balloon animals.
Woohoo! So it turns out an average bunch of party balloons is not enough to save your life in a car crash. But it's not such an outlandish idea. An airbag is an inflatable and so is a balloon. Maybe there is a balloon out there or a configuration of balloons that we could make that would save your life in a car wreck.
In other words, the myth may be down, but burst it ain't.
Welcome back. All episode long, we've been testing the myth from World War I that a sharp-cornered trench is better in warfare than a soft, rounded cornered trench because it inhibits blast waves from traveling through the trenches sent by exploding mortar shells. We are now at the full-scale phase of this test, and we have a bunch of beautiful trenches out here in Gold Country in Northern California. We have some explosives in our arsenal.
Nice. Yet another use for duct tape.
And any minute now, we're gonna start blowing some stuff up for science.
Indeed, but for test 1, there will be a torpedo, but there won't be a trench.
Right here in this very spot, shortly we'll be setting off 25 pounds of TNT as our open-air, unobstructed control test. We've got sensors placed at 10-foot increments because shortly after that, we'll be setting off explosions in the trenches and collecting and comparing similar data.
In other words, the open-air blast should give the guys a bonus benchmark.
Well, they're capped in.
I think it's time to get to a safe place and watch this happen.
Let's de-ass the area.
Indeed. Are you ready?
Are you the key master?
I am the key master. Are you Gozer?
I'm Gozer, baby.
All right, here we go. Above ground blast in 3, 2, 1. Oh!
I can feel that.
That was like a refreshing breeze that lasted a very short period of time.
It sure was a refreshing flare-up. And the good news is that the high speed's the bomb.
Look at that. Wow, that might be one of the prettiest ones we've ever gotten on camera.
But the better news is they got the data. 20 feet from the blast, and pressure was 39 pounds per square inch. 30 feet, it was 12. And by 50 feet, it had dropped to just 5.
Straight trench.
Yep.
But how will those numbers differ once the guys get down and dirty? The myth of the clown car crash
Now that is what I call a party.
is so far looking like balloon baloney. But all is not lost.
All right, so that didn't work. The clown pushed right through the balloons.
True, but there are other types of balloons than the ones that we tested.
Well, it sounds like we should do some small-scale tests. Maybe we should take a weight, drop it on different types of balloons, and see which balloon decelerates the weight the best.
I like it.
Now, so far, we haven't had any success at all with using balloons as airbags. They just don't cut it. So what we need to do now is look at balloons and find out which one absorbs the most energy. To do that, I'm going to build a balloon-crushing rig.
And to rustle up said rig, Grant first wrestles up some giant metal rings,
Hula hoop, anyone?
which are then welded together into a tube
It's science.
before being plastered with plastic.
Done.
Then just two things remain. A wooden drop disc with a dead-on diameter.
Good.
And an explanation of how on earth it works.
So the balloon basher is finally finished. I've got my polycarbonate cylinder with the steel reinforcing frame. I've added this plunger right here with a 50-pound weight. Now the idea is that we drop this onto each type of balloon. Using the same weight and the same volume of balloons each time, we can compare and find out which type of balloon absorbs the most energy.
We're also going to be attaching an accelerometer to the plunger. This way we can record the G-forces at play. And we can also find out which balloon reduces the G-load the best. And once we find that balloon, we'll take it to full scale and see if it saves a clown. Grant hates balloons.
With the rig at the ready, the testing can tumble, starting with the control.
Here we go. This is control test with no balloons. In 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Okay, control is 100 Gs.
Next, it's time to bring on the balloons.
8.
Beginning with the type from their earlier test.
15 air-filled latex balloons.
In 3, 2, 1.
Immediately, it's clear that the regular latex balloons barely curtailed the crusher at all, as the accelerometer data almost matches the control.
Now we're going to move on and see which is better. Different materials and different shapes, like this.
With no balloon left behind, next up, it's
Balloon animal.
to ensure a correct comparison.
Look at that one. That's not a freak of nature at all.
The guys fill the cylinder to precisely the same depth.
I'm making a pterodactyl.
But will their curious creations
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's an octopus.
lower the G-load at all?
Balloon animals. In 3, 2, 1. That worked pretty good.
That worked better than I thought it would.
This is really cool. Look, it goes from 100 to 6.
We got 6 Gs from the balloon animals?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there might be some truth to this myth.
Our animal balloons got us down to 6 Gs. And why is this? Well, if you look at them, they're sort of irregular shapes. And in here, there's a lot of air, so they can compress a lot. But they're also a lot more flexible. That means that they can absorb more energy before they pop.
With a G-load slashed so significantly, balloon animals may yet be top dog. But next, it's
Little balloons.
All right, small latex party balloons. They're so adorable.
3, 2, 1.
They might be little, but man, they do a good job.
Tori's right. These miniature marvels did such a good job that they cut the G's to just 2.8. But can that be bettered with the next party pitch?
Big balloon.
The advantage of these bad boys is that they're made of a thicker latex, which could lower the load.
Ow! All right, giant party balloons. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Oh my God, come look at this one. Look at the oversized one.
We got 2. I think we have winner.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's awesome.
1.
The big balloons have been awesome, but they've not taken the clown crown yet, because the final contender
Is Mylar. Now, the reason why I think Mylar might have a better chance of working than latex is that it has a higher burst pressure. So it takes more energy to pop the balloon. That energy is taking away from the kinetic energy of the impact, hopefully. But we'll see.
In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, wow!
At first glance, this balloon looks the business. But the data disagrees.
3.8.
With a G-load of 3.8, Mylar misses out. Instead, the best-case scenario balloon is their extra-large latex.
So now what we need to do is take this to full scale, fill up a car, drop it, and see if it saves a clown's life. Yeah, now it's a party. Woohoo! Ow.
And 3, 2, 1.
Adam and Jamie's open-air blast is beautifully done and dusted, which means now it's time to dig deeper.
We are tied in here.
For our first trench blast, and all the subsequent blasts we're going to do, here's how this is going to work. At one end of the trench, we have placed the equivalent of a mid-sized World War I mortar, 25 pounds of TNT equivalent.
And from a comfy distance of 1,000 feet, we'll remotely detonate our device with this transmitter.
And when it goes off, the pressure wave from the blast will be monitored by a set of PCB sensors placed along the trench at 10-foot increments.
And that information will be collected by our data collection device in this padded box.
And finally, all that data will be received by this laptop, where we'll analyze it and see what, in fact, we actually got.
First up is the control trench.
Here we are.
50 feet of green straightaway that's about to get rocked.
Shall we retreat to safety?
And push the button?
Yep.
Let's blow this puppy up.
All right, straight trench in 3, 2, 1. Wow.
Things are falling.
Yeah.
Many things are falling from the sky. That was spectacular.
Spectacular and spine-chilling.
Oh, man.
Their straight and true trench has been well and truly trashed.
Well, our first trench test was, I think the word I'm going to use is gangbusters. The level of destruction is really shockingly higher than I would have expected. The fireball itself reached almost 35 feet down this trench. It's horrifying. It's just horrifying.
Both the hijinks and the high speed suggest that the blast was harsh. But what do the PCB sensors say?
Well, our pressure sensor data from the trench test is very, very interesting. Editors, will you help me out? Draw 2 lines. Fantastic. Label one trench and one above ground. Now, put down the sensor data that we got. See that? See that? The trench seems to have an amplifying effect on the shockwave. It's significantly higher in the trench than above ground. Now, does the shape of the trench affect that amplification? Well, that's the question, isn't it?
In Party Balloon Pileup, the guys now know the best case balloon.
I think we have winner.
So cue more car crash carnage.
We're gonna run the test the exact same way. We have our 2 clowns, one in the passenger seat without a seatbelt, one in the driver's seat with the seatbelt. Both of them will have accelerometers attached to them. We're gonna take the car up with the crane, drop it from 41 feet so it's traveling at 35 miles an hour, let it crash into the ground and see if the balloons make a difference.
Remember, with regular latex balloons, the clowns peaked at 620 Gs, 6 times over the lethal limit. But for this test, the guys aren't just opting for their optimal thick balloons.
I love to pump some helium every now and again, yeah!
They're also packing them in as tightly as possible.
This is like how we used to pack for family trips.
To try to ensure that they form an impenetrable barrier.
Trying to fill a couple gaps by blowing them up in place.
And while they may not represent realistic driving conditions, it is giving this myth the best chance of success.
Take her up.
So we're about to drop the clown with the balloons. Now remember, our benchmark is 100 Gs. We need to see the balloons decrease the G load below that. If he goes over 100 Gs, the clown is dead, and so is this myth. All right, this is clown car dropped with our best latex balloon. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Whoa.
Oh my God!
I think it might have worked, man.
I think that clown may have survived.
What a beautiful sight. I saw that clown car descending towards the earth, and then I saw the high speed. Now, in the high speed, you actually see the car start to compact The balloons separate just enough for a clown face to peek through and a clown nose to dust the windshield and then start to go back into the car as if the balloons are bouncing him back.
All right, Byron, how'd we do? Did either guy get under 100 G's?
Now, you'll remember he sustained over 600 G's with just the party balloons. But this time, only 130.
Wow, that is a huge reduction in the G load, but still 130 G's to your body, there is no way you're gonna survive that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're gonna have to call this one busted.
Totally busted.
Thought for a second there it had a glimmer of hope.
Nope, still dead.
So it turns out, even with our best balloon, the oversized latex balloon, we were not able to save the clown's life. So this myth is busted, but we're not gonna stop there. This is Mythbusters. It's time to ramp it up. So we're gonna go back to the shop and see if we can come up with some kind of configuration of balloons that could save the clown's life. What?
In their earlier shop tests,
They might be little, but man, they do a good job.
the guys tested one balloon type at a time. But now, it's anything goes.
Get to work.
As the Mythbusters go head-to-head in a quest to find the ultimate life-saving balloon barrier. First up is Carrie,
Too much. Too much.
who's making what can only be described as a wiener whoopee cushion.
That might work. This giant mass of weenie balloons should take care of a couple issues with the balloon airbag. One, they won't separate, so the clown can't push right through them when he actually gets in the crash. And two, they're all a little underinflated, so that he can't pop them when he hits them. Besides, my clown sensei once said, one balloon weak, mini balloons strong.
Meanwhile, Grant is also going for the more means less approach.
You know what this is? That's right. It's giant bubble wrap.
By building up layers of small balloons, he's hoping to make the perfect packaging.
All right. Bring on the weight.
Finally, there's Tori, who's combining balloons for a real knockout.
I think we got a winner here. Yes, sir. All right, now what I'm gonna do for my balloon airbag is take the giant latex balloons and the Mylar balloon. What I'm gonna do is incorporate the two. I'm gonna stuff the Mylar with the latex balloons, because one thing I wanna do is keep the balloons together inside the Mylar, and hopefully that'll save his life.
Tori's balloons within a balloon approach is certainly bizarre.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh, it's a baby balloon!
But will it be a lifesaver?
Okay, who's first?
I say ladies first.
You want the weenie whopper whoopee to go first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Just like last time, Carrie loads her design to the 4-foot marker and then takes the plunge.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Oh, come on, that was so delicate.
Look pretty good.
But unlike last time, they're not going to disclose the loads until each design has been dropped.
Next up, Tori's 4-heart coronary design. You know what I think? I think it's gonna go.
All right, this is stuffed balloons. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
That looked really good.
Yeah.
Last but not least, it's Grant's turn to go down.
You guys ready for the magic?
Yeah, showtime.
In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, we got a couple of pops, but hey, maybe more than a couple.
All right, let's see what we got.
Like the two before it, Grant's rig looks rigorous. But who will come out on top?
Okay, remember we're looking for a number under 2 G's, which is what our big balloons got. My contraption was 3.8.
Close, but no cigar.
That's a pretty good score, though.
Not really. You got 2.8.
Oh, closer.
And Grant, you got 1.7.
Hey, that's great. Now to go full scale.
Oh, we got some work to do.
So this is our winning scenario. It reduced the impact energy to 1.7 G. Now what we need to do is make 15 or 20 of them and stuff them into every part of the car and see if it saves the clown.
It's a well-known fact that airbags save lives. Party balloons, on the other hand, not so much. But in a last-ditched effort to make a balloon barrier that works, the Mythbusters have stuck together 15 layers of balloon bubble wrap.
Balloon delivery.
And back at Car Crash HQ, it's time to get the drop on this myth once and for all.
Here we go again.
So far in our party balloon pileup myth, nothing has been able to save the clown passenger's life. But we are in the business of extreme. That's why we have this. This is something I like to call balloon bubble wrap. It got the lowest G load of anything we tried in our drop tests. It's festive and protective.
But will it be protective enough in a 35-mile-an-hour head-on?
It's probably better if you don't watch.
To find out, the guys stuffed the car so it's literally fit to burst.
These guys are packed in there like sardines.
That ought to do it. Now, with this last and final test, we're trying to get below 100 Gs on our clown. That is our benchmark for survivability. We've addressed all the problems that we've experienced with all the other balloons. We have small balloons on sheets of plastic. That way the clown can't push through the middle of the balloons, and if one little balloon breaks, it's not going to create a big cavity where the clown can actually fall into the windshield.
It's a souped-up solution that's do or die for the myth. If this doesn't work, nothing will.
All right, here we go. This is bubble wrap in 3, 2, 1. It did not look good.
Let's go check the data for the party balloon pileup.
All right, so how did the clowns do with the balloon bubble wrap?
Okay, so the passenger's head peaked at 220 Gs and his body at 230 Gs.
Wow, so the clowns actually experienced a bigger G load than in the previous test.
So party balloons are not a substitute for airbags or seatbelts.
Stop clowning around.
Honestly, the results of this test are a little disappointing. I mean, I really hope that we could create a survivable party balloon experiment here. But I guess when it all comes down to it, the most important thing is that you don't use party balloons as an airbag.
Ain't that the truth? Because for this experiment, the clowns, like the myth, are busted.
There you have it. Balloons and clowns don't mix.
Well, they do mix, they just don't save their lives.
In 3.
Adam and Jamie's straight trench torpedo has just gone off with a bang. And as well as a sensational high speed, it's blown up some surprising results. Surprising because when compared to the open air control, it's clear that the straight trench amplifies the blast pressure. The question now is whether a corner can cause those numbers to drop down. And first up, it's the pinnacle of German engineering, the sharp-sided trench.
This is the trench that the story's all about, the one with the sharp corners and right angles. And based on everything we've seen so far, by the time the blast wave gets to the end of this trench, past all these corners, it ought to be fairly small.
Going down.
To put Jamie's prediction and this myth to the test, the guys position the explosive package.
Absolutely beauteous.
And then deploy for detonation.
You ready for this?
Are you Gozar this time?
I am Keymaster.
All right.
Call it out.
Right angle, sharp cornered trench.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1.
Wow!
I don't know. I think there's going to be a crater there.
I think there might be. Let's go look at it.
It's goodbye Yellow Brick Road as the blast tears through their trench. But at ground zero, to say the guys are happy is an understatement.
Wow. Dude, check that out.
I think this tells pretty much the whole story because that's intact. Everything up to that point is not. As you can see, this is the safe end of the trench. The further you go that way, the worse it gets. Now, most of the energy seemed to have traveled down the trench and appears to have gotten absorbed by these corners based on how badly damaged they are. By the time you got here, there's not so much energy left.
Jamie's right. First impressions are that the cornering did cut out the carnage. And what's more, the data concurs. At 20 feet, the PSI was 60. At 30 feet, it was 19. And at 50 feet, it was just 7. A colossal contraction from their tunnel trench. But the myth says that only precise corners can shelter a shockwave. And to find out just that, it's time to end with another breathtaking bang.
We're about to send another blast through another trench, and I'm standing right where the rubber meets the road for this entire story. This is where we will compare precision engineering versus your normal wear and tear of a soft-cornered trench. I think my intuition tells me that the sharp corners are better and that we'll see a higher blast pressure at the end of this very trench. But only one way to find out.
For the final time, the guys set up the PCB sensors.
It's looking a little toasty.
Position the projectile.
There you go.
And retreat to safety.
Here we go. This is 25 pounds of explosives in a serpentine soft-cornered trench. This is for real. This is for the money. 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.
Never get used to that.
Gosh.
The serpentine salvo was a blast. And for Jamie, it's the high-class, high speed that seems to tell the story.
Editors, let's pull up the high-speed footage of the square-cornered and the round-cornered trench on split screen. Okay. Now, if we look at the fireballs in these two different trenches, we can see that in the square-cornered trench, the fireball stops moving just after the first corner. However, in the round-cornered trench, the fireball passes the first corner and the second corner before it stops moving. Now, visually, that tells me that you're going to be in more trouble at the end of the round-cornered trench.
And that's something that the damage at rock bottom seems to agree with.
More destruction. Hello.
But what does the data dictate?
Well, I think we got some good data.
I think we did. Let's get back to the shop and crunch it.
Okay. What do the numbers say?
I'm glad you asked. I have prepared this to explain them.
What, did you make a cake?
No, these are our 4 explosions, and these numbers represent the blast pressures we got in those explosions.
Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, I can see that the straight trench almost looks like it is amplifying the pressures because they're almost 10 times as high as the above ground control test.
Absolutely, and check out the difference between the right-angle trench and the serpentine trench.
It's clear that the numbers in the serpentine trench are higher than the ones in the right-angle trench.
I think these numbers tell us that this myth is plausible.
So it is.
Plausible.